Hi, I'm Dr. Allison Muller, and today I want to go over 5 reasons why you may need a toxicologist for your case. The first reason is almost why you don't need a toxicologist for your case. So I'll get calls from attorneys about cases that involve drugs, but perhaps the case is better suited to a pharmacy expert. So I am a registered pharmacist. That's my original training and my current licensure as a pharmacist here in Pennsylvania. But knowing the answers to questions is quite different than being an expert in an area. And my area of expertise is specifically toxicology, which is a subspecialty of pharmacy. So if an attorney calls me, let's say with a case, and it's about a pharmacy misfilled a prescription, and they want an expert that can opine on operations as a pharmacist in terms of, how prescriptions are filled and what the process is of getting a drug dispensed to a patient, that would not be me as a toxicologist. So I would let them know that. And if I had a colleague in pharmacy who I could refer them to, I would provide them with that information. Maybe that the case really needs a pathologist rather than a toxicologist, and there's a difference. Pathologist is performing the autopsy, and perhaps the question is more geared towards the autopsy itself rather than the toxicology results. Or perhaps the attorney needs a toxicologist, but also needs a pathologist, also needs a pharmacist, or other experts, in my opinion. So we'll talk about that as well on that initial phone call. The second reason why, or a second scenario where an attorney may need the skills of a toxicologist, would be to really help determine if the case is viable. So I always like to get calls from attorneys about cases in the earlier stages rather than the later stages. So if it's a case that involves, let's say, drugs or alcohol, which are the more common types of cases that I encounter, although I certainly encounter cases on environmental toxins such as carbon monoxide and such, but often it's drugs or alcohol. And so is it a viable case from my opinion? If it's, let's say, a plaintiff's case and the question is, did the drug in question cause this injury or this death to the patient? Well, that's something to consult a toxicology expert witness about earlier on, before all the time, money, and effort has been put into a case. The third reason is to really have a teacher, someone who can teach the science not only to you as the attorney, but ultimately to a jury. I love to teach, and in my experience in teaching, I teach graduate level students, pharmacology and toxicology, but I've also done the other end of the spectrum, and that's teaching the general public about poisoning, about drugs, about how to keep their young children safe from poisonings in my time at the Poison Control Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Those are two very different audiences, and so being able to teach those at a level who don't have the experience with the terminology in toxicology, in medicine, and in science, but yet being able to explain complicated and sometimes multi-layered topics that can really help them understand the case. That is, the attorney understand the case, and ultimately juries understand the case. The fourth scenario where an attorney may think about hiring a toxicologist as an expert witness is their case isn't exactly a drug or an alcohol-related case per se. It's not that cut and dried, but there's drugs in the background. So let's say it's a case where, it's a personal injury case, but now you have the information based on, hospital visit that they had drugs in their system or they had an elevated alcohol level. And what does that mean? How does that impact the case? Well, it's important for the attorneys to understand how that impacts the case and have a toxicologist explain that. Maybe it's a situation where it's just the drug screen and there was no confirmatory toxicology testing done. Well, there's false positives with drug screen. So being able to explain things like that And then ultimately, if that information is going to be kept in the case and it's able to be presented to a jury, to be able to explain the significance of that to a jury. So I like to tell attorneys that even if you don't have a straightforward drug case or a straightforward alcohol-related case, if you see drugs somewhere along the line and you want to know what that means for your case, that's where a toxicologist would come in. And that's one of the scenarios where I work with all different practice areas of law. So it may be a child custody case and there's an addiction issue and there's a drug testing follow-up being done. Or it may be an employment-related case. So there's somebody who was injured at the work site and they were drug tested following the accident. What do those drug testing results mean in terms of reflection of were they impaired at the time of the accident or not? And then the final reason, and I alluded to this already, is that the jury may need someone to teach them the science of a case. So a toxicology expert witness is there as a teacher, as I said earlier. And so there could be very complex issues that the jury needs to be clear on and really understand to really decide on the outcome of the case. And I am not there as an expert witness to win the case. I am there to teach the attorneys, teach the jury, and it is up to the attorneys to take that information and then present it to the jury. But it's not up to the toxicology expert witness to win the case. That's what lawyers do. So I hope that these 5 points really kind of shed some light on why an attorney may need the help of an expert witness in toxicology for their cases. And I hope you join me for future topics in toxicology.